Hey, I'm Ron Drotos from KeyboardImprov.com, and welcome to day 3 of my 31-day Jazz Piano for Beginners Workout Challenge. And yes, it's for beginners, but it's also for intermediate, and I don't think any advanced players are going to be really watching this because of the title, but hey, my playing's already getting better, and it's only day 3, so I expect after a month of this, I'm going to be playing like I've always dreamed. So thanks for being here, and we're going for fluency. It amazes me how jazz piano can be taught in such a dry way sometimes. And I know, look, everybody's well-meaning and everything, but I get students every week who, got turned off by somebody who was, you don't want to start with just thirds and sevenths of every chord. It's too much. It's too much to think about. And there's no need for it because you're bypassing the essentials of learning all the seventh chords too. So when I say to somebody, hey, seventh chords sound great to improvise on. Why don't you start there? And they're, my old piano teacher never let me play a seventh chord. How could you not play a seventh chord? And the truth is, we'll go into another time with the whole history of these rootless voicings and stuff. They're great to learn at a certain time when you're ready for them, but they're not the be-all and end-all as everybody thinks they are. They're really not. They're just one little way to do it. And they were never used really until the 60s. So for the first 60 years of jazz, people were using seventh chords, and then, yes, some ninths, 13ths, depending on who they were, artatum, early on. But to abstract a template of 2 ways to play voicings from Bill Evans and Duke Ellington, Billy Taylor, other people who are using these voicings, and say this is the new starting point, has done a disservice to generations of jazz pianists and turned off so many people. So there we go. That's my take on it, and I think you're in the right place because we're going to get you ready to learn those in a really good way, so they become just another set of tools in your toolbox. Because I was always, confused. Bill Evans is supposed to play these these rootless voicings, and then I look at a transcription, and they're not really in there. They're kind of sometimes, but then he's playing 3-note voicings, and I realized he was starting from the 7th chords and then adding on to that and altering those. He didn't have a template of, okay, these are the hip voicings I've got to use. It was much more creative, and we can start there right at the beginning. I've seen that for, 3 decades of teaching jazz now. I've seen it's very possible, so I'm delighted you're doing this, and you're going to go much farther. So I will set, I think I did it already, but I'll set this for 20 minutes, so we have a nice time together, but not all day. And we're going to start right in with, we'll get to C7 in a minute, but we ended yesterday by playing the blues with just a C and an E flat. I just want to do that for a couple minutes, and we're going to add to it. So you have C, E flat, and you're getting into the rhythms and listening to the notes and really getting into it, okay? I'll keep an accompaniment. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go on. Keep going. Calm response, but you're going to imitate what I do. It's good ear training and good for our rhythms. I'll just play for one measure. I'll go, and you do the same thing, okay? Just on a C. 1, 2, 3, 4. did both. E flat, C. That's a tried and true way that you don't really hear much anymore, imitating other people right in the moment. It's great for our reflexes. It doesn't even matter if you get it right all the time. You're working the synapses in your brain, and I'm thinking, and it's just helping our musicianship. So now let's add a third note to this. We'll add F. So C, E flat, F. These are the first three notes of the so-called C blues scale. The blues scale was never really the predominant scale used in blues until the 60s, around then. It was published in some books, and I think the classic rockers really, Eric Clapton and people like that really embraced it. It's not all they use, that's a misnomer to think that all they're playing is the blues scale, but they use it a lot, and it became a thing at that point. It is in some very old songs in jazz, like Backwater Blues, which Bessie Smith sang. I believe that's from the 30s, like 36. But you're not going to find it so much in the real early blues. You listen to West End Blues by Louis Armstrong from the 20s, you're not going to hear the blues scale too much. It's interesting. They were working on chord tones and around the chords and in certain ways. And sometimes they do this play between the major third in the scale and the minor third, like St. Louis Blues would use that. But the blues scale does work in jazz. You hear it in like Bag's Groove, Sunny Moon for Two by Sonny Rollins. And it's a great way to just get started, So we'll gradually go through these notes in the blues scale. But the idea is that we're using it in a complete way. We're playing these just as good as like a Bill Evans or Charlie Parker would, because we don't have to think about so much. We can really get into the groove. So I know I kind of said that tongue-in-cheek, that we're going to play it as good as Charlie Parker or Bill Evans, but we found out we can play one note as good as them. So maybe we can play three sometimes. We can certainly have as much fun with our playing as they did, even at a very beginning stage. That's the most important thing, because without that, you're not going to keep going, right? All right, so these are the first three notes of the C blues scale. I use fingers 1, 2, 3, but the fingering is not important on the blues scale. It's much better to be able to just think on the fly, and that's not a secondary step, it's the first step. I never learned fingerings on the blues scale. So I use it to my advantage too, because I can't fly up and down on them, but I can play really good within little bits and pieces. It makes my playing more musical than if I was just playing the technique. So here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, go ahead. Use all three notes. Take a whole chorus. See, and we're so happy with one note that's a way of improvising on the blues. That's similar to the lyric structure of blues lyrics. There's 3 phrases of 4 measures each, and a lyric will be like 1 sentence per phrase generally. The standard sort of way it originally was done, that we know from at least recordings. And like we don't know how it was done in the 1800s because there was no recordings yet of blues. So not until like 1918, I think, first blues recording, maybe 21. Not totally sure on that. But the lyric structure would be, they'd say a sentence, and then the next phrase, 4 measures, would be the same sentence again, maybe slightly altered with the chords or the melody, and then the third phrase would rhyme with it. So you'd have, I went down to the store, but all my cash was gone. Okay, and then they'd say the other one, I went down to the store, but all my cash was gone. And then they find a lyric, and I rhyme with gone. I don't know what would rhyme with gone. I don't know. That's not a good. That's funny. I backed myself into a corner. But they come up with a line. It's almost like a haiku that has three. So you can do the same thing. You can just repeat. You take your 4-bar phrase, and then you do the same thing again in the next 4. And then you can do the same thing for the third. That's what Bag's Groove and a couple of the others are similar to that. So let's give it a try. Try to remember what you did for the first 4 measures, and then do it again, and then do it again. Or something close. 1, 2, 1, 2, you go. Now do the same thing again. And now the same. C-Jam Blues is like that. I'll try another one. Fun things about that is that it forces us to be catchy and melodic, because we're going to have to remember it. And how many solos just kind of meander, and don't go anywhere? This is the instant remedy for that. Swings, right? And then you do that again. I can remember it because it was catchy. So this is great. We're learning as we go along here, and like I said, I'm getting this too. Let's shift gears a little. We had been playing with the notes in the C scale yesterday, just the first 5 notes, but let's play a C major 7th chord in our left hand. So we're going to have a C, E, G, and then a B on top of it. Ever since really the 30s, go out on a limb, say the late 30s, somewhere around there, the 7th chord has become the bass line of jazz. No play on words with bass line, but basically the standard. It's a colorful harmony as opposed to a triad, which that's very colorful too, right? In Mozart's hands or whatever. But somehow in jazz, they started going more toward the 7th chords, and this was related to a lot of the popular songs of the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Cheek to Cheek, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Stardust, Pennies from Heaven, tunes that jazz musicians would play. Basically 7th chord oriented, and it became this rich, colorful, harmonic language of jazz. So we're just gonna hold down the C in our left hand, and let's do it together as I improvise using, I'm just gonna go the first 3 notes of the C scale, C, D, E, okay? With a swing rhythm. So we're going to both hold down the left hand for 4 measures. We're going to play it and hold it down while I improvise in the right hand, okay? So again, Simple, it feels so easy, but you're going to absorb what I play, and that's going to help you too, right? So works on many levels here. 1, 2, left hand, here we go. Again. Again. Ready, go. Yeah. Now let's forget about the left hand, and you can just improvise using C, D, E with your right hand. All right? And I'll play the accompaniment. 1, 2, a 1, 2, ready, go. So we are deriving, we're in the key of C. The reason I picked C, D, E is because I'm considering this C major 7th chord the 1 chord, the tonic chord, the first chord in the scale, because the bass note is the first note of C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's the do. It's the first note. It's the home plate. It's the tonic. And the corresponding scale that could be used are the white notes. And we all know that, right? If you listen to Mozart, he's using the C scale. And a lot of times, I think people's first approach to jazz is you open a book and you see a tune with 5, 10, 15 chords in it, and you think you have to figure out what scale or mode. The Mixolydian mode for this, the Aeolian mode for that, the Dorian mode for that. We're going to find that that's only part of the story, and it's actually not the predominant way that jazz musicians thought about the music all the way through the bebop period and the beginning of the post-bop period. That's a, quote, modal way to think of jazz, and it's on a tune that changes chords a lot. It's too much to think about, not only for beginners, but if the chords are flying by, I'm not thinking of those different mode names or even the full scale. I'm finding some notes that work through these, and we're going to explore that to be able to manage that and really have fun with it. It's sort of basing our approach on how jazz has been played and learned through the years, not just sort of how it's been sort of institutionalized or codified. It's very, very much a living tradition, and it's getting into certain notes with each chord. So the reason I picked C, D, E is because the first 3 notes of the scale, I thought we'd start easy. But also the outer notes are part of the C chord. So the C and the E are going to sound like chord tones and very consonant. The D, I don't want to even call it a dissonance, but it's like a color tone, like a bell that has some overtones. So you can land on it, but it's got a colorful, slightly unresolved note, but you could even linger there. So let's try it again. You can play the C in the left hand. You can either just hold down the chord, or you can try some different rhythms, but we'll get into that. Don't worry so much about the different rhythms yet. But you're going to play the C chord in the left hand and improvise using C, D, E in the right. And just have fun. And you don't have to play all the notes at all times. You can just stay on one, because we know how to be happy with one note, right? It's a big, big thing in our toolbox there. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like this. And you're going to be playing the C in the left hand, right? Here we go. by when you're into this stuff. Who'd have thought 3 notes could be so satisfying? At the end, I was remembering that in the early days of Duke Ellington's career, and his band spanned the 1920s to the 70s, 50 years he kept this band together, amazing run there. And he said that in the early days, he didn't care how many notes a guy could play, but as long as they had one good note, he'll take them. And I always thought he was kind of exaggerating, but you listen to some of those early Ellington things from the 20s, like Black and Tan Fantasy, or that's a great one. So that's not a good. Bubber Miley plays on that, but there's other tunes where, like, the trombonist might play, and some of the notes just don't sound great, and then they hit that sweet note, and it just sounds so beautiful, And I think he was actually telling the truth with that statement. So congratulations on embracing this fluency thing. It's really the way to go. It's how I think every great jazz musician learned. And at a certain time, then you dig in and you get the book out, or you take a course, or you study privately or whatever. But this is the way to start. And if you're a beginner, you're probably embracing this, and this is great. Hey, I can play these 3 notes, or on the blues, and the chord in the left hand. I've never done this before, and it feels great, And I don't feel overwhelmed. It's doable. If you're at the intermediate or high intermediate level, you probably feel like, okay, am I really doing enough here? I'm used to thinking of all these modes and doing this. But embrace it, because you will get so much better by doing this and then learning how to apply this technique to the other things too. So you're playing through the modes, but you're not trying to play everything all at once right away and learn everything at once. It's wonderful when you embrace it and you go along for the ride. So thanks for being here. There's some links you can click if you're interested. Subscribe to my channel. Playlist with all the videos, of which there are 3 at this point, but there will be 31. And then another video that I thought you might be interested in watching. So thanks for being here. Enjoy the journey at every step of the way, and I'll see you tomorrow.